So once again, a hearty welcome to all of you. And I'll quickly introduce the moderator, the panelist. Yeah, first, the moderator, Sri Anish ji. So can we have his slide? Anish ji's slide. Yeah, he is, needless to say, a profound being, a spiritual teacher. He was in HR. He was a successful entrepreneur. Many of you know that he was a co-founder of People Strong. Then he got a call from the Supreme Authority of the universe, and he moved to the Himalayas, went on meditation, went on deeper study. So now he's spreading his goodness, his knowledge, nuggets to the whole world. So he founded a great body called Sadhu Sangha in Dharmshala. And his vision is to create an awakened leadership in all spheres of life, including the business world, because he can't forget that part of the great world. And he writes, he blogs, he speaks, and his recent book, a wonderful book called Let the Mud Settle, has recently got published. It's available on Amazon. So thank you, Sri Anish. Thank you so much. We'll move on. I'll introduce our first panelist, dear friend, a great leader, Rajiv Dubey. He is chairman of 3 of the Mahindra Group companies now. He started his career with Tata Group, the TAS. He spent 21 years there. He rose to the level of the CEO of Rallies. He joined Mahindra in 2004, and he was a most successful group president, HR and corporate services, and CEO of after market services. He was on the board of Mahindra Group. He retired, but he continues to be associated with them. He studied in economics. Then he did his MBA from USA. He contributes to the professional bodies. He was the national president of National HRD Network. He held many positions in the professional bodies. He is currently with the ILO. He's a part of the governing body. And he is also in the National Executive Council of FICCI. Welcome, Rajiv. Welcome. We will move on. Madam Vinita Sahai, as you all know, so she is the second women academician to be on the legacy of the directors of an IIM. In fact, she is the founder director of IIM Bodh Gaya. Earlier, she was with IIM Raipur. She was there as the chairperson of international relations, doctoral program, and student affairs. She is widely traveled. She's a visiting professor of many universities like Aarhus University. She attended Global Colloquium at Harvard Business School, Boston, Harvard Center, Shanghai. She also participated in several programs like developing leaders, governance, management, higher education. She did her that's not important. She is the director. Of course, she's from a marketing stream. She is first class with gold medal in MA in economics and done PhD on consumer value with about 23 years experience. She has published several papers. She has authored 5 books, and she organized successful international level organizations. Madam Vinita ji, welcome. Our third most and the most important one of them is Mr. Vinod Sood. He's the co-founder and MD of Hughes Cystic Corporation. He is on the board of Hughes Communications India. Earlier, he had worked with HSS and CDOT. He was part of the core team which designed the first digital switch. Vinod is a veteran in the high-tech software industry, an exceptional track record of building profitable and sustainable institutions. He's a member of NASSCOM, Regional Engineering Council, he's the chair of Northern Indian Council. He's a member of the advisory committee of Institute of Informatics. He's on the several boards of several universities. He's actively involved in guiding, mentoring entrepreneurs. He's in the advisory board of some of these setups. In fact, he's mentoring his passion. And I personally know he mentored one young boy from the state of Odisha. He is now a global leader. Guess. Now I'll the rules, the format of the welcome Vinod, welcome. Welcome. So the format will be our moderator Sri Anish will set the contest and he will share his vision on the subject. Then he will involve our three veteran panelists in the form of a panel discussion. He will raise a question and there will be a conversation around that. And they will give room for question answers from the audience. So the audience are requested to put their questions in the chat box. Start with a capital Q so that we'll not miss out your question. Sometimes it's a comment or a greeting. Question should be with Q so that we'll pick that question. And then we will again request Anish to sum it up. So that's how we'll spend these next 85 minutes. So with that, I would hand over the stage to Sri Anish, the moderator. Sri Anish, thank you.
Thank you, GP, for such warm welcome to all of us. I once again welcome my co-panelists, the esteemed dear friends and co-panelists. It's an honor to have you all here. I also welcome all the participants today. The fact that we have almost 150 friends join us on this cold winter morning of Sunday on this topic shows that we're all interested in creating a more kind world around us, and especially in our business world. As you know, as GP said, that this session is part of a series that we're doing, and we call it Awakening the Leadership series, because we feel if the leaders of a nation are awakened, and especially leaders of a business entity, of the business institutions are awakened, then that awakening will flow to all the people, even at the bottom of the pyramid. It will go to houses, it will go to the entire society, and probably the entire society can be awakened if the leaders are awakened. So this is our effort towards that. Now I'll just take a few minutes to set the context for today's discussion. From survival of the fittest to survival of the kindest. You know, since childhood we've heard this, and somehow it has always been told to us that this is more like a law. Survival of the fittest is more like a law. And when we hear this as a law, survival of the fittest, the undertone of this is as if life is a war, life is a struggle, life is a race, and only the fastest or the most strongest will survive. And this is a jungle out there. This is the perception that you get since childhood when you hear this statement. And it creates a lot of pressure and suffering then, because we're trying to protect ourselves from all the sides then. If this becomes the philosophy on which we build our life, our careers. And when we hear this, you know, from since the childhood to the college, to the corporate, to the business world, it feels as if we've converted, or we are treating our Karam Kshetra, the field of our action, as Yuddha Kshetra, as the field of a war. We've kind of somehow mixed these two, and I feel businesses are not battlefield. Absolutely not. The genesis, I think we got it wrong from the time of Charles Darwin, when this whole theory came up. In fact, the fact is that Charles Darwin, in his theory of evolution, never even used this word, the survival of the fittest. This phrase was coined by a gentleman called Herbert Spencer, who was a British philosopher. Of course, in 1869, Charles Darwin used this phrase of Herbert Spencer, which was not Charles' original phrase. He didn't coin it, but he used it in his book. That's for sure. And somehow we associated this phrase with Charles Darwin. So factually, it is not from Charles Darwin. And when I looked at it a little more deeply, you know, Herbert Spencer operated thought from a British imperialistic point of view. There was a whole class hierarchy system. That race felt that they are the superior, they are the best race in the world. They felt that they have the right to rule the entire world. They have the right to rule the entire world because they were the fittest. That's what they thought. And with that, they created this philosophy of survival of the fittest. It is not even 200 years since the time this term is being coined. But across the world, in all our fields of work, it has kind of become a religion. It's like a law. We're operating our lives with this principle. I think this is fundamentally, the statement is fundamentally wrong, because life does not operate on the principle of survival of the fittest. Life operates on the principle of survival of the kindest. And if you see, in India, we always operated from the philosophy of abundance, from kindness, from sharing. This is not our cultural philosophy. Survival of the fittest is not our cultural philosophy. But somehow when we look at it in a business scenario, the perception is there are limited resources, and you have to grab those limited resources. I remember just a few days ago, I was talking to a filmmaker friend, and he said that, look, there are these young filmmakers who are coming in the field, and they are spoiling the market by offering their filmmaking services at a very low cost, at almost sometime 1/10 of the cost. I looked at him, I said, why do you say so? He said, because survival of the fittest, no? Whosoever will offer low cost will get all the business. I said, no, you're looking at it from a wrong lens. Because these young filmmakers are not spoiling the market. They are expanding your market. They are creating new market. Now, people who never thought of creating media for their business, film media for their business, for this social market, social media, now they are also, because they are providing low cost solution. So this new breed of entrepreneurs, new breed of businesses are also able to use the media for their marketing. So its market is expanding. Yeah, we have abundant in this country, especially. There is abundant opportunity. Don't look at it from a survival of the fittest perspective. Expand the market, and there is enough for everybody here. Again, to operate from the philosophy of abundance, not from the lack. Then, this whole genesis of creating a business. What is a business? I mean, I look at it because I've been in the business kshetra and I've been in the spiritual kshetra also. I look at it, the genesis of a business is every business is trying to solve a problem. A car manufacturer is trying to solve a problem of mobility. Mobile companies trying to solve the problem of communication, access. A TV is trying to solve the problem of boredom by providing entertainment, etc. A toothpaste is trying to solve the problem of oral hygiene. So every business, through their product or services, are trying to solve a problem, right? When you're trying to solve a problem, the whole attitude is positive. The whole attitude is building, nurturing, supporting, helping the humanity to create a better life, right? Now, you can't create a better life, a positive life, a nurturing life if you yourself as business people are operating from the perspective of war, of enormous pressure, of enormous stress. It's like a oxymoronic thought process that I'm aggressively as a war trying to create a better world, a comfortable world for my customer. Yeah, so it's kind of doesn't go well together. Yeah, and as I said, India is a huge market. In business, we thought, because there was a philosophy that we create artificial demand, we create artificial shortage, so that we are able to earn the maximum market share. But when I look at India, I don't think we need to create artificial demand or artificial shortage. The market is huge. We don't need to create FOMO-like situation in people's mind to grab their share. There's enough for everybody. It's a level playing field. Because if we operate from the philosophy of survival of the fittest, then we end up creating that philosophy becomes a pillar, as a base for our own life also, and then everything in our life becomes a struggle. And I elaborate on this also. But before that, let's look at nature. Is this philosophy true in nature, survival of the fittest? Probably not. If you observe nature, trees in a forest have a network under the earth where all the roots of multiple trees, even of different species of trees, they provide nutrient to each other. If a tree is sick in a forest, all the other trees, through the network of their roots, rush to help the sick tree. Even if the tree is of a different species, they transport all the nutrient required for the well-being and health of this tree who's sick. In India, we have seen that, there's a bull or a cow on the street, and a bird comes on the cow, and the bird is sitting on the cow eating something. This bird is actually providing kindness to the cow or to this creature by eating the bacteria and other insects, and making sure that this animal is safe. That's the principle on which life also operates. Yeah. The whole life depends on this cooperation of helping each other out. I think that is what has made humans evolve. That is what has made life evolve itself. We were never fighting for survival. Especially now, if we look at, I think we all have a very comfortable life. Nobody's killing us. Nobody's running after us to kind of, there's no security issues like that. Yeah. We've created a very safe, comfortable life for all of us. If I look at the human body itself, trillions of cells, they're all kind to each other, and because of their coming together, the whole body survives. Do you know when few cells in our body start to operate from this point of view of survival of the fittest, what happens? They start to attack each other. They start to kill each other. In the medical term, it is called autoimmune disorder. If your own cells start to believe the philosophy which we are teaching in the business world of survival of the fittest, our survival of this body will even become difficult. Autoimmune diseases will come. I'll give you another side of this, how it's affecting our health. There's a hormone called cortisol. It's called a stress hormone, cortisol. In the business world, when we create this philosophy of survival of the fittest, a war-like situation, a stress, a pressure cooker-like situation, what happens? There's a flight and fight response in our system. Our body starts to secrete this hormone called cortisol. And this cortisol, when it is released in the bloodstream, it releases a lot of glucose in the blood. Because in a war situation, your body needs a lot of glucose. This cortisol shuts down certain operations from your system. So for example, your growth hormones are stopped. The heartbeat is increased so that you're able to run or fight. The energy which goes to the digestive system is blocked, and that energy is supplied to the survival system of the body. This is nature's design. This flight and fight response was given to us so that in a danger situation, we are able to, release this cortisol and are able to either run fast or fight fast and save ourselves. But our body is tuned to adapt to this only for a few minutes. Then it has to come back to normal so that other systems, the digestion, the repairing, the growth hormones start to work. But now imagine in the work scenario, we spend 8, 9, 10 hours in that zone. And if it is survival of the fittest, then our body is constantly releasing cortisol. Constantly. Which means constantly a lot of glucose is released in the bloodstream. Maybe that's the reason of the new pandemic of diabetes. I don't know. I'm just raising the point. It also creates a lot of mental imbalances. Even things like PTSD and stress and split personality and lot of depression is linked to high amount of cortisol release in the bloodstream. And why that happens? Because of the situation. It's a war zone. That is what it is doing to our body and mind also. I know people, my own personal friends, for them, just the thought of going to the office Monday morning meeting is sufficient for them to release a large dose of cortisol in their body, and they would start to, panic. I've seen friends getting panic attacks before a meeting, before a board meeting, and things like that. Just because we've created a philosophy of survival of the fittest. Whereas I think the philosophy to lead the life was to be survival of the kindest, because this whole life operates on the philosophy of kindness. Let me give you a quick example of two countries. Two countries. We all know these two countries. One country can be considered as the country which believes on survival of the fittest philosophy, country called China. Apparently a fit, strong, aggressive country. Look what's happening to it. Nobody's liking that country anymore. People are hating that country. The country, nobody wants to do business with that country. With that, another example of another country called Tibet. Not the fit, not the strongest, from popular perspective, but very fit, very strong from the kindness perspective. It's a very kind country, and see what is happening to Tibet. Their message is reaching across the globe. It is probably the fastest growing philosophy that they've created of Buddhism. They're spreading, they're loved by everybody. Everybody wants to help this community. Why? It's the kindest community on earth, probably. Think about it. With this as a base, I want to invite insights from my co-panelist on a certain question. And I first of all invite my friend Vinod. And the question I want to ask my panelists today is, why have we created a business, a business culture, which feels more like a battlefield? Why, even in our language, in the business language, we use language like, let's kill the competition. It's a prize war. I recently heard another term called talent war. I heard another term called the war room. Boardrooms have become war rooms. Why are we creating this self-hypnosis? Why are we creating businesses which are appearing like battlefields? Vinod, I want to invite your comments, your input, your insights on this, Vinod.
Yeah. Good morning, all. And first of all, would like to thank Sri Anish, the Sadhu Sangha Foundation, and GP Rao Garu, who have chosen a very, very relevant and a topical subject. I think, as Sri Anish pointed out, this is something in today's time is very relevant, and I think it's a great idea to discuss. So, Sri Anish, to answer your question, for us to know what is behind this, what is the genesis of this all? So if you see, since times immemorial, humans have been afflicted with an uncontrollable aspiration of amassing wealth, name, fame, and power, closer to animal instincts, if I would say so. Now, what happens is that this luring desire clouds the brain, and we feel a strong need to defeat all others, no matter what it takes, and thus leading to an aggressive mindset, thought process, and hence, I think, its expression in our language. As you also said, it's only about 200 years. So in modern times, actually, this has become all the more pressing, strongly endorsing advocacy of materialism. What is happening is that the organizations and leaders running them see failure of others as the sole index of their own success. So actually what happens is that they go full throttle, competing with each other, mired in conflict, disharmony, and negativity. And the same destructive streak is reflected in our strategies and terminology in the business. Actually, if you see, I feel businesses invariably reflect the norms of the societies in which they exist. So terms like my way or the highway, take no prisoners, kill the competition, and a very relevant term which is being talked about nowadays, and you mentioned that, talent war, for example, right? All these, they have found their way in the business language of our society, where the focus has been on individual achievement and winning at any cost. Now, having said this, I firmly believe, based on my experience and learning of building few high-tech companies, and especially at Hughes Steel, is that companies should not take the so-called Darwinian term, survival of the fittest, as a lesson or learning from nature. And you also alluded to this, that it's a harsh world out there where the weak perish and strong survive. Okay. And that unless you are prepared to meet it with animal aggression, you won't last long. In fact, this is a overly simplistic understanding of how natural systems work. Actually, if we dig deep, and you in fact gave few examples, we discover that the true lessons they have for us is pretty much the opposite of what we thought: collaboration rather than competition. So I hope I've been able to throw some light on the question you asked me. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent, Vinod. Two things which I really, kind of quickly noted out of what you shared is that, others' failure is my success. That's how the human mind is operating, or the business mind is operating. Very well said, Vinod, on this. And the second point you said, and maybe we'll come back to it later, is you said business reflects the norm of society. And my counter argument to that would be, shouldn't business define the norm for society? And we'll come back to this. Because I feel businesses can really define the norms of the society. Yeah, but we'll come back to this. Rajiv ji, you've led large businesses. You have been, over 50 years you've been into the world of business, many shades of it. Why have we created a war zone out of the business zone? Yeah.
So, I'm struggling to add to what you have said and what Vinod ji said. So let me try. You see, we are stuck in the past. There is a dominant narrative that was created by some small group that thought they were victors, which was the win-lose. And actually, it's more than 200 years old. I mean, you have to just go back into history, and unfortunately, the history of mankind, from a particular viewpoint, has been of wars. Has been that either I win or I lose. The fight, flight. All these things are born out of millions of years of unconscious memory in the human mind. And the question really is that, do we have the ability to not get stuck in the past? Are we connected to the reality? Do we have the courage to question all these things? So why are we stuck? Because we are stuck in the past, right? And this is the dominant narrative from a particular point of view, because if at any time you go out into the society, when you move from the owner, the shareholder, to stakeholders, this narrative was never true. It was never true. It was never win-lose. It was either lose-lose or win-win. That was always true. But the narrative that was developed, and which we have blindly followed, because I think we have paid obeisance to the few victors, and these victors either are political powers or even institutes of learning, the business schools, the shibboleths of learning, where we blindly follow. Harvard Business Review says this, all of us go there. There was this wretched Jack Welch who said something, the whole world followed, forced curve, etc. So I think it's our fear, it's our inability to think clearly, and it's being prisoners of the past dominant narrative that has led us into this, which is, by the way, totally inadequate. And I can build you a solid business case as to why this whole narrative will not work anymore in an interconnected world, in a VUCA world, in a world where there is pushback, and finally where there's climate change. And you're damn right, sorry to use that word, Business is about solving problem. The war is with the problem. The war no longer can be with each other. No wars have been won, even in modern time by any nation. Look at the US, it got its nose bloodied everywhere that it went. So that whole narrative has to be questioned. We have to get out of the past. We have to live in the present. We have to be relevant, and we are not doing that. That's why we are following what we are doing right now, the narrative, the words of war.
Wow, wow. Excellent, Rajiv ji. I'm so glad to hear it from you. The conviction with which you're saying that, that the old needs to be shunned away and we cannot build the new humanity, new businesses, new thought process with the old wrong narrative which has been imposed on us. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, Rajiv ji. Vinita ji, the hem of, preparing the future leaders, so to say. Why are we creating this business warfare? Where have we gone wrong? Could you please?
Great. Actually, very, very happy to be part of this conversation. Especially, I come from marketing stream where these terms are used most often. So it's very common for us, even as a teacher of marketing, to use the terminology like guerrilla market fare, price wars, all these words which you were using, and not just what we were teaching for last couple of decades, but also the way we were treating our students. And here I mince no words in saying that the way, especially the CGPA system of grading students, if I can say so, and be very, very specific around it, we are pitting one against another. We are telling our students that to get a higher grade, you need to be better than others. You need not share your knowledge because then everybody knows. So see, I'm coming from a scenario where it is all opposite. And I heard Dubey mentioning that we are not doing it. All needs to be shunned away. I also heard Suji mentioning that, and of course, Anish ji, you also mentioning that in last 200 years, we've done so much, so much, so much. And I also heard you mentioning cortisol. Let me reverse. And again, in reversing the entire scenario, I take the complete responsibility to ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I am representing the academic world of the country. I am taking this responsibility because it belongs to us. We have, like, we represent what erstwhile they say the word guru. So actually, yes, the task of setting it right belongs to us. Because, and that's why I may go away from your question, because while I declared yesterday that I'll be participating in this talk, some of my students have been, texting me questions because they have all kinds of confusions, because the narrative which we have been having in our school is let's reverse it. And, the time is now, because all these people whom I can see on the screen, we grew up in what we call it as a school of scarcity. We grew up in a country which just got independence, where everything was in short supply. Like I always say that movies and theater reflects the reality. Look at the movies when we were growing up. I always tell and discuss among ourselves. Movies like Mother India, movies like Kala Bazari, all that, where everything was talking of scarcity. People were dying, everything was in short supply. Every time I see Mother India, I actually go in depression because there's so much of pain in that movie. Fortunately, the current generation has grown up on a school of abundance. So that is where I, as an academician, am extremely hopeful, because the future belongs to the generation which has come up in the recent times. And believe me, they are far, far, far better on integrity. And when I say integrity, it is unison of words, thoughts, and actions. They say what they mean and they do what they think. So with this kind of hope, the responsibility lies with us. So yes, we have to change this narrative. And, and it's so encouraging. We at our school are doing small examples. So for an IM, it is very unusual to talk of compassion, to talk of mindfulness, but we've taken it on ourselves that this is the conversation that we are going to make central. And I feel extremely proud of a young team of mine which has joined me in this experimentation. So mindfulness for us is not just a word, it is something which we tend to practice on a daily basis. And yes, it is so encouraging to see students asking questions. Like yesterday, somebody asked me, ma'am, what's the difference between compassion and kindness? And believe me, it took me a while, but today, I think through this only I'm answering my student. Compassion is what I thought was like, it's not something which you can practice. It's like love. Can you say that you practice love? No, it's either there or it's not there. So to be compassionate, first thing I thought, and I deeply listened, thought through, and I thought, okay, to be compassionate, you have to have no expectation. Because compassion doesn't flow from a feeling of want. It has to come, what we call, if I can use the word, what we said, overflowing with completeness. So when you overflow with completeness, compassion would follow. But how do you reach that stage? So the second student asked me, ma'am, how do I reach there? If it is a state of being and state of, I said, okay, one shortcut to that is practice kindness. And, do small acts of kindness. And, it may not immediately come, and sorry for using such an obnoxious term, fake it till you make it. So fake kindness, if to start with, or start doing it, even if it is not coming from within, start doing it. And, when you will do it, and look at what you will get. So in our school, we practice a small act of kindness, maybe offering a lift to someone, because we live in a very small city where even getting public transport can be a problem. So we offer such small things. And I tell them, look at your own state of mind when you would do it. So we'll not talk cortisols, we will talk oxytocin.
Excellent.
So I keep telling them, get this feel, get this high. And then you would know, after acts and acts and acts of doing it, you will feel fulfilled. You will possibly have a glimpse of completeness. And that would be a moment of compassion. So, I'm so sorry, maybe I'm not answering the question, but I'm taking this forum to answer those questions which my students keep posing me. That how do I become compassionate? What is this whole abstract business of kindness?
Yeah. Vinita,
and somebody was asking me, ma'am, I'm kind to some people, I'm not kind to someone else. So what is this business?
Yeah. I would suggest you could send some of these students to us. Just give them to me for a semester.
Exactly. And believe me, these are the kind of conversations which are needed. We're talking about, all of us, we are talking about 200 years. Why don't we go back? So Dubey-ji, it's not about shunning history. It is about going deeper into history. And I don't want to sound leftist or rightist or anything, but the answers lie there. India has been one of the most ancient civilizations. And I keep telling my students, the biggest test is test of time. If we have stood this strong for so long, it is only because we were doing some things which were very, very right. So what was right is what we need to pick up without getting apologetic about it.
Yes.
So
Very well.
Sitting in an IIM, I should be talking about this.
Absolutely.
There is nothing wrong in it, because actually the results would lie there. And the best thing is that today's generation is very, very okay with it.
Yeah.
Maybe because of all this, suppression and labeling that our generation indulged in, they're sick and tired of it. So they are ready to, look at another way of, sorry for my going all over, but this is how I feel. And responsibility belongs to us.
Correct. I can see your passion, Vinita ji, when you're talking about this. And I'm so glad that as an academician, as an institution, you're believing in this, you're feeling about this, and things like mindfulness is being introduced to the students. Excellent. I'll quickly come back to you, Vinita ji, on this. Yeah, quickly come back to you on that. Okay. Now, with that, let's also, in this session, I also want to get insights from our extreme panelists about, what has this attitude done to us, or what is this attitude still doing to us? So my second question, and I invite Rajiv ji to go first on this is that, Rajiv ji, in your experience, you must have seen that what has this attitude of survival of the fittest has done to the health, which is physical and mental health of the employees, of the people in the business, and on the overall health of the planet. What is the impact of this philosophy? Could you please share some thoughts on that?
Okay, in two words, it erodes and it destroys the potential. So let me just elaborate very quickly. It is creating so much anxiety and fear in people that the energy that they should be devoting to solving the problem, to expanding the potential of the ecosystem and of the people to solve the problem, that is going in fighting anxiety and in fighting fear. So by the pure laws of physics, the potential of the ecosystem to solve the problems which its purpose is getting drained. That's what it's doing. And the same thing is happening at the level of the planet. You know, after all, Mother Earth can only be pillaged. And I hate to use the word destroyed. I was going to use a stronger word, but I'm not going to do that. You know, because now it's not forever going to give you everything and you keep on destroying it. So I would say that the erosion and destruction of the potential of organizations at micro and macro level is getting destroyed, and energy is being drained in fighting paranoia and anxiety. And at the level of the planet, we are just destroying the planet, and it's not sustainable anymore.
Wow, excellent thought, Rajiv ji. The way you've put it, you know, I'm so glad to hear this, that you've brought this up in this conversation, is that this attitude is a leak on our energy. And this is also eroding the potential which human beings have, or which collective human beings have when they work in an institution. Phenomenal way to look at it. I'm so glad you brought it up. Vinod, what's your thought on this? What is it doing to us? This whole battlefield. Yeah.
So what I will do is I'll focus on our businesses and our companies and how it impacts in our day-to-day working. So basically a philosophy that reflects survival of the fittest, winners take all attitude only makes people operate in their own silos and create stresses. Okay. And with my experience of more than 3 decades, I can tell you that organizations may miss out on very important suggestions, observations, and viewpoint of their employees who are not pushy, aggressive, or when we talk about fittest, I also mean maybe having very high intellect. And all of us know that it's not just the IQ which makes a difference. Okay. So all this negatively affects the health, relationship, and the overall well-being of the employees. And I'm sure all of us will agree that in these times of COVID-induced work from home, these negativities, they percolate the stresses to the families too. Okay. And here I would like to briefly talk about the concept of psychological safety, which is very closely related to the topic we are discussing. And amongst organizations, Google, in fact, after extensive research and analyzing performance of teams across thousands of their employees and hundreds of teams across the world, they found that psychological safety as the single most important factor which determined team effectiveness and performance. Okay, so what is the psychological safety? It is being able to show an employee oneself without fear of negative consequences of self-image, status, or career. Or to put it differently, a shared belief held by the members that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. What is happening is in our organization setting, we are always evaluating interpersonal risks, often unconsciously. Should I speak up or stay quiet? Should I be open, honest, candid, or should I hold back? And actually, actually what happens is that we err on the side of safety. People in the meetings, they often hold back when they believe that what they have to say could be important for the organization, for the customers, or for themselves. Voicing a concern in a meeting, okay, or giving an unpleasant yet necessary feedback to a colleague, sharing a different perspective on an issue, all these are very essential at work. And without psychological safety, what happens is people hold back, okay? Problems go unreported. Improvement opportunities are ignored, okay? And occasionally, tragic failures occur, okay? Because if somebody would have spoken, could have been avoided. And over time, this lack of psychological safety can cause actually not just impact the performance, but can be a cause for resistance to change, lack of innovation. And in the context, we have heard this term called great resignation wave. In fact, this is something which can lead to higher attrition. And the recent pandemic actually has added to this complexity. Okay. In fact, we all have heard about this term called VUCA world. The pandemic actually has made this hyper VUCA. And I think organizations have started recognizing that they need a radically new view and fresh ideas, okay, to thrive and survive in this hyper VUCA world. To sum it up, I would say that the overall well-being of employees, okay, the paradigm has to change. It has to be a win-win paradigm and not a winner-takes-all paradigm.
Excellent, excellent, Vinod. Whenever I hear leaders like you speak this, my hope of for an awakened humanity is suddenly, takes on to a very different level. And I'm so glad you and Rajivji both, you've actually said, both of you, that this, if we operate from this philosophy of survival of the fittest, it's actually a dent in the business. It pushes people in their silos. It does not provide them. And you beautifully talked about psychological safety. I mean, when people perform to their optimum best, when they are not perceiving anything as a threat, when the whole atmosphere, environment of the organization is nurturing, when they're not being judged, they're not being pushed on the side because they're not aggressive, as you said. Beautifully put, Vinod. I'm so glad you put it in such a way. Vinitaji, your thoughts on this? What is this doing to our physical, mental health and to the environmental health all around us?
See, coming from the academic world, I'm expected to be sharing more in terms of the researches happening in this area. So, of course, and as I said, that we at our school, we are trying to put it across in a little more researched fashion, because if we just talk words, the younger generation need a lot of data, a lot of, since I live with the left brain people who need a lot of empirical evidence around it. So let me talk in terms of empirical evidences. Very clearly, there are some researchers which show, like there's a research done by Yuva Angel and Anusha, wherein they have proved that compassion has an important predictor for entrepreneurial decision making. So what they did is they created two groups, one control group and an experimental group. And in an experimental group, they made them do some loving kindness meditation. And the results clearly showed that there is a very strong relationship between that loving kindness meditation and the sustainable decision making, which in turn is mediated by compassion. So when Suji was talking and everybody was talking of that how we need to be more entrepreneurs and the business people have to make more sustainable decisions. So clearly compassion acts as a mediator. There are enough researches again which talk about role of compassion and kindness in leadership theories. And Thomas and Rollin in 2014 has research big time around it. I think all of us are aware of this book, Kindness in Leadership by Gay Haskins, where he did talk about that how, we have to put kindness as an agenda. So there is enough research available in the literature and in the research realm, which clearly shows that this is the way going forward. Now talking about a physiological health, like today I was talking of oxytocin. Yes, there is a very clear research which says that this oxytocin, basically it is created by having these warm feelings. It could be by hugging, sharing warm stories, sharing moments of kindness, anything. And it very clearly has an effect on what we call it as cardiovascular system. There are some receptor sites in our arteries, which is like, landing sites. And it's lining all our arteries. And whenever oxytocin is produced, it creates what is known as nitric oxide, and that expands the arteries. So again, researchers have very clearly shown that oxytocin, acts of kindness, they will dilate your arteries, which in turn will lower your blood pressure. So again, if I look at it, there's a very logical reason for practicing this. So if you want to remove stress, if you want to be healthy, this is the way going forward. And that's why I share this with, with my young students also, because long ago, I became fan of one of the statements of Mother Teresa, where she said that, don't call me to anti-war rallies, call me to a peace rally. So, let's again talk about the conversation that, okay, you want to be healthy. And mind you, this is a very, very relevant conversation, especially post-pandemic, where everybody wants to remain healthy. Everybody wants to have high immunity because people have seen their own loved ones going away. So it's up close, personal, in the face that you have to have a better health. So, okay, if this serves as a prompter, there's enough research which shows that if you want to be healthy, if you don't want to have diseases, this is the way going forward. So, when we share it so empirically with the young audience, there seemingly is a far more convincing story. I think this should be told in the organizations also, that if you're facing stress, might well as do something like this. And if you want to be a great leader, might well as do something like this. Because, these stories are compelling stories. And as I said, enough evidences are there. So I remember even when I was in a B school, we used to have examples like Body Shop, where being compassionate led to success. Not treating things on animals led to success. And again, I would reinforce my faith in today's generation. I think for centuries, people were wearing fur. But look at the situation today. Nobody is wearing fur. Nobody is wearing pashmina. Nobody is creating cruelty on animals. So that means this generation is reacting very beautifully. So just let's wherever the attention is going, so let's put our attention, let's just put spotlights there on those success stories. And I think that would lead a lot of people to follow that. Because till now we've been saying that you have to kill others to survive. No, now we have to put stories that, wow, people thrived by being kind.
I think another thing, Vinitaji, we should do is that, bring corporate success stories and leaders like, let's say, Vinodji or Rajivji, whom we have the chance to listen to the younger generation, to the aspiring, IM students, let's say. So let's say if Vinod shares the story of kindness and how it helps the business to grow, I mean, it's a proof that, the earlier narrative is not working anymore, or it was a wrong narrative to begin with.
Anish, that's why whenever I meet industry, and today again I'm using this platform, please, industry captains, become kind. Spare your time and energy to be on campus in a very selfless way.
Yeah.
And share your success stories with the youth of the today.
Correct.
That's the only way you can see. Because if Rajiv ji says that I reached the top, but I was kind.
Yeah.
Then it is a
Correct.
compelling story.
Absolutely. And I remember when few days ago, I had a conversation with Rajiv ji, And he shared 3 mantras that he has been following in his entire life. I don't know if he'll share those 3 mantras with us, but I encourage him to share that along with the question that I want to ask him now. So it's been proved in this discussion so far that survival of the kindest is the way forward. It makes a lot of business sense also. It's healing to the body, mind, psychological health of us and of the planet as a whole. Now with that, Rajiv ji, what is it that the leaders must do to create a more sustainable perspective? And I say the more sustainable perspective is survival of the kindest. And maybe you want to share your 3 mantras of life with all of us.
Maybe I should start by sharing the 3 mantras in case I forget. So for me, it's been Satya, Prem, and Seva. Satya means to speak the truth, regardless of the consequences. Prem is compassion, the ability to put myself into the shoes of the other person. And Seva, of course, is a spirit of service. So that's the answer to this question. One can elaborate on it. And they have all very profound consequences for business. Let me come back to the role of the leader. Let me first say that given the new normal in which we are operating and which will intensify, and that new normal is highly interconnected, volatile, uncertain, and complex and ambiguous, pushback by all stakeholders, and then the environmental change. So that's the context. In that, I think for any organization to survive, there has to be the ability to take proactive and iterative decision-making at all points in the value chain. Right? This, in turn, in my opinion, requires distributed leadership. And that distributed leadership has to be accompanied by a deep knowledge of stakeholders that we interact with, right? Now, to have distributed leadership and to have that deep knowledge, you need to create trust and you need to have compassion. And kindness is a necessary but not sufficient condition to create that trust and compassion. So that's the business case. Now, what do leaders have to do? The leaders first have to I think, articulate and make sure or try very hard that people internalize the purpose of the organization and the values. Then, having communicated that, obviously they have to have strategy, structure, processes, and metrics. But with that so-called hardware, the software of culture has to be created by the leader. And what is culture? Culture is the way we behave in our everyday life as we go around taking business decisions. How do you create the culture for the people here? Or it is through what we call the HR levers, right? But most of all, the leader must walk the talk. And it's not just when I say leader, it's not that one person. Leadership is a cascading, living, breathing organism. And for me, anyone who has at least one person looking up to him or her is a leader, which means almost everybody is a leader. So it is this ecosystem of purpose and values, internalizing it, communicating it, in addition to having the hardware of strategy, structure, processes, and metrics, to have the so-called software, which is much harder than the hardware, by the way, of culture and behavior through the HR levers, and most of all, for the leaders and the leadership to walk the talk, I could go on and on, but I stop here.
Excellent, excellent. Vinod, your thoughts on that?
Again, adding to what Rajiv ji said, and this is based on my experience of building and leading large high-performance teams, I would say leaders, certainly they have a very, very key role in creating a culture and an environment which promotes and nurtures kindness, empathy, and a psychologically safe workplace. And the most important factor that determines, as we saw, the psychological safety of a team is the leader's role, modeling of the right behaviors. So when a leader provides an environment which promotes survival of the kindest and is psychologically safe, it brings in a plethora of positive virtues. And just to elaborate, such environment, it will promote learning, creativity, knowledge sharing. Nobody is going to treat knowledge as power. Okay, they will share knowledge. They'll be learning from mistakes. Failures will not be looked down upon. It will help teams to take advantage of diversity. It will reduce conflicts and this one-manship. Okay, and this definitely is going to be, keep talking about employee engagement. Okay, this is something which will enhance employee engagement, resulting into reduced attrition. And in terms of the business result, this definitely is going to improve performance. So basically, teams that provide opportunities for all to speak up, promote empathy and collaboration, and make each team member feel safe. Okay, it is now clearly proven by research. Okay, that these teams, they outperform even other teams within the same organization. Okay. So for leaders to succeed at gaining commitment from all members of their teams, and these will be members who have to learn to speak up, those who have to create space for others, those who have to learn intellectual humility, okay, those who have to manage heated debates, okay. So these people have to feel deeply inspired, I would say, and invested in that change journey, instead of seeing it as a top down or simply a nice to say thing. Okay, so I firmly believe that along with leaders, and I think Mr. Rajiv also alluded to that, everybody, key team members have to be role models. Okay, they have to walk the talk. Okay, so culture, as we all know, is not built simply by changing individual behavior, but it needs change of group behavior. So that is something which, based on my experience, I thought I would share.
Excellent, Vinod. So from individual behavior to the change or process to change the collective behavior, phenomenal, and modeling the role models to kind of create a certain exemplary atmosphere there. Excellent. Vinitaji, your thoughts on this?
See, again, I do agree with what these two leaders were talking, that a leader has to be setting the tone. And I have always felt, and since I'm sharing it more as my role as a founder director, right from day one, I have shared it with my team, and I felt it myself, that the founding team, which includes me as well, our main objective, purpose, and biggest duty is to set the culture in the organization. And when I say set the culture in the organization, create a culture, definitely a little aspirational culture, which is all about compassion, which is all about new way of living, which is what we are trying to pass it on to our new generation, something which we already always knew in ancient times, we to rekindle it and put it across to the current generation. So this is how my entire team has seen as our role, that create a culture. So yes, that would entail all of it, walking the talk and being that oneself. Like I have always, I think 2018 is when I wrote our messages together, or wrote our vision together, where we said that, okay, it's not about to do, it is about to be. That we have to be ourselves that. Now, a couple of things which has helped us as a team, I would like to share this in this platform. Like, because I live with young people. So they are coming to terms with their own emotions. They're coming to terms with their own personalities. And especially in today's time, and we generation were very lucky that social media was not there. today's generation, life is very difficult because all this impact has made them very outer-directed. So all the, affirmations and all the validation, somehow they tend to seek from outside. And in all of it, how do we make them centered? As an academician, that's a challenge for us as a team. And we tend to kind of address that by creating small practices. Like, as I said, they have all kinds of innocent questions. So other day, one student came to me, and he was a gold, like kind of a gold medalist, and all of a sudden his grades started dropping, and we asked him, what's the reason? So apparently, on a conscious level, there was nothing. But when we probed deeper, I could recognize that he had some very intense competitive feeling with another person who was kind of inching towards him in terms of CGPA. And that was leading to that lack of concentration. And so much so that there was an almost on the bordering of animosity. So, when people are becoming enemies and they're treating each other as foes, I was kind of contemplating, how do I help this person? Sometimes it happens even on young team members. And again, I would say my team is also very, very young. So we're kind of learning and teaching each other. And somewhere I read it, sounds very esoteric, but I thought of sharing it with him, and it has helped me. So I'm using this platform of sharing with others as well. I said, early in the morning, set it with one of the routine that you do every day and bring this person in front of you. So this so-called enemy of yours, and, give him some loving gesture. Could be a flower, could be samosa, could be pakoda, but offer this to him with a lot of love. He says, how is it possible? But so I said, you try and do it. And believe me, he said, okay, now you're saying it, let me try. So every day when he sat for studying, and when this other fellow started bothering him and hampering his concentration, he started offering one of his favorite sweet dish, which was malpua, to him. Okay, come, have malpua.
Vineta ji, you're not doing justice on Sunday morning by talking about samosas and malpuras, and a lot of us have not had our breakfast yet. So
I can be cruel as well, that means.
Please be kind, Vineta ji.
Yeah, so basically it meant that yes, that student actually, he overcame that challenge which he was facing, and he realized post that he was concentrating better on his studies. So that block which he was facing, he was able to overcome himself. So there are small things with which we try and help our team members to create that culture that, okay, you can't surmount people by animosity. You have to be a little kind to them. And, there's one word which we keep sharing, that if you hate somebody, you need to know him more. Because everybody carries a story. It's just that you don't know him enough.
Correct.
So these conversations...
Vineta ji, can I come back to you? You seem to have a lot of stories, huh?
Yeah, I'm a professor. So you should not have given me mic, that's a challenge.
No, I think there are some phenomenal inputs that you're sharing. I'm so glad that as a head of a management institution, you are wired that and you're looking at life and students' future that way. So we're so glad to have you on the platform. But just looking at the time and looking at GP, I know GP,
I just wanted a few questions from the audience to be taken.
Before that, GP, I just want our panelists to give us one statement, and please one statement only this could be difficult, but just fit it in one statement of any practical example that you can share with our audience here where you can display that the kindness really worked. Yeah, kindness really worked. One practical situation from your professional life, I would say. We start with Vinod.
So in fact, drawing from our own culture, okay, the concept of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, okay, that world is one large family. We have practiced this since our inception at Hughes 16 years back. And to just give you an idea, during these 16 years, we we have gone through pretty difficult times. We have weathered 3 storms, so as to say. The worst economic meltdown which the world has seen, 2008, 2009. The telecom consolidation during the decade of 2010, okay, and the current pandemic. And what I would like to say is that the culture and the value system which we have built at Hughes System, where we treat all employees, all members as part of one family, and the feeling that we are there for each other in good times and in bad times, okay, and we are there to help each other, support each other. And I'm very happy to say that we are not only weathered these storms, but we have come out strongly. We have grown as an organization. We are doing well. So that is something I wanted to share in terms of a practical insight, okay, and based on our own journey, that this is not an esoteric term, survival of the kindest, but we have practiced that within our organization, and we have not only been able to survive, but we have thrived and we have grown.
Excellent, excellent. Vinita ji, one statement, one sentence, yeah.
See, you were looking for examples that
Ji.
like the kindness works, and I think foreign institution, like typically in Bihar, they say that it takes at least 1.5 decades for an institution to come up. The very fact that in about 2.5 years or 3 years we are up and running itself is a testimony that kindness works, because we've made it a hallmark, at least in our very small team, and we've seen ourselves great results. Great results in terms of getting best of the human beings working here, best of the students coming and getting attracted here by the conversations. So if it's too early for me to make such an esoteric statement, but if in a decade's time we are able to walk the talk which we are talking, that itself would say that in a competitive B-school, kindness world.
Excellent, excellent, Vinita ji. Excellent. Rajiv ji.
In one sentence,
Yes, please.
the Mahindra Rise initiative to drive positive change in the lives of our stakeholders and communities through the way we conduct our business. We've been working on it for the last 15 years. Sorry, more than one sentence, sorry. I could go on and on. There's a Harvard Business School's case study that has come out in April 2021.
It's a case study. It's a case study.
I can talk about
Oh, wow.
Wonderful.
Oh. We at some point, Rajiv ji, we should actually do a session on this, on the Mahindra Rise case study. And I am personally very keen to read this case study, so I'll get in touch to get a copy of that from you. Great. Thank you, Rajiv ji. With that, friends, we've come to our question answer section. With your permission, Dr. GP, shall we go ahead with the questions of the participants?
Yes, let's take a few questions.
Yes.
And what we'll do is, you pick up the most relevant and insightful questions and prioritize those. And for others, we will reach out to the panelists, get their answers, and we will send the answers to the participants. I think that's a practical solution. Right?
Perfect. Perfect. Sounds good. So, okay, since I have the liberty to pick up the questions, I'm looking at it. Okay, so there's a question by Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi ji of BIMTech. And he says, can we expect a collaborative global economy in this decade when a few big tech firms are likely to control it as oligarchs? Who will control these giant firms? Very pertinent question, though he's asked it from me, but I would request Vinod to share his insights on this. Vinod, please.
So I think again we are coming with this thought of who is going to control. Okay. So again, instead of thinking in those terms, in terms of who is going to control, I think what is going to work, and that's where I think the industry also is talking about, that there has to be some kind of self-regulation, okay? And the companies also have to come together and collaborate, okay? So that is my short answer to this question.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And I'll also say, Dr. Harivansh, my 2 cents on this. Yes, in the practical world, on the ground, we see some big tech giants kind of taking over the smaller businesses, etc. But what I've seen in the world, or in the smaller areas where I live now, if you promote the local economy by making sure that you do an extra bit by, let's say, going to that shop and picking up your grocery from that shop, it really fuels the local level entrepreneurship. And the way our country is set, I think if we can continue to fuel that, it'll create a balance, and it'll not be overtaken by a few large firms, so to say. So that's what I would say. There's another interesting question by KK Upadhyay ji. Somehow it is again addressed to me, but I'll open it up to others also. It says, does place matter? I stay in Delhi, and you just take your car on the road and the fighting spirit starts. I notice you stay in Dharamshala. Does it make a difference? I've lived in both the worlds. I was in Delhi and Gurgaon at the peak of madness there, and then I'm in Dharamshala now. So I've seen both the worlds. My personal answer to this would be yes and no. Both. Unfortunately, life is a combination of yin and yang both. So let me elaborate quickly on that, why I'm saying yes and no. There is a time in your life when you're so much in the grind that your mind needs certain calmness of a space, calmness of a certain sangha, so that you're able to maintain this balance, and this understanding grows in you. The understanding of world is kind. You need a break from the regular rush. But once you've taken that break, it could be 3-day break or 3 years break, I don't know, depends on you. But these smaller breaks in between your regular life gives you a glimpse of the kindness, or the glimpse of a certain rhythm and a pace of life, which is not competitive. And once you get the glimpse of that, it is very easy for you to integrate that back into your daily life. Yeah. So yes and no, both. I hope it makes sense. There's another interesting question. It's by Dr. Diwakar Dadu, and he says, it seems in the corporate world, onus is on leadership to emphasize on kindness. Unless large part of the corporate world does so, it may not become a movement. Imagine this very discussion happening before the pandemic started. Do you think it would have helped the nation not to have so many people left jobless and unemployed by organizations in pursuit of their profitability, or even as an excuse to downsize? Tough question. And I come to Rajiv ji for that. Because it's a tough question, Rajiv.
No. So my own view is that these things, you're right, it's a movement and an ecosystem has to be created. And yet we can all make a difference by the small actions that we take in the here and now and every day. And therefore we should do that and not wait for the whole world to change before we start doing our bit. So we need to take responsibility in the here and now. So I think that's very important. Number two, my own view is that in the pure pursuit of even bottom line maximization, I mean, for a moment, I give it that, all right, shareholder value maximization is to be pursued. I don't agree with that, by the way. You have to treat labor not as a short-term cost to be minimized, but actually as one of those rare appreciating assets, which if invested in properly will give you returns in terms of improvements in productivity and innovation that will far outweigh the cost that you incur. So it's a very myopic view to treat labor or human resources as a short-term cost to be minimized, which is actually what happened during the pandemic. The downsizing, I mean, if you look at the cost structure of a firm, and not all firms, but many firms, labor is a very small part of it. But the first thing we want to slash is the labor cost, because it's so easy to do that. So, I mean, so there is a whole mindset shift that has to take place, and that will take some time, and leaders have to stand up. But there's pure economic logic driving that. And having said that, let's not wait for the world to change. Let's take responsibility for our own actions, and let's do what we believe in, to hell with what the rest of the world is doing.
Excellent, Rajiv. Excellent. And I see your passion comes from, and now I know why you sit on the board of ILO Geneva. Excellent. GP, just allow me to take two quick questions. Yes? Okay. Okay. And this I would ask Vinita ji to give a quick insight on this. The question is from Sachin Mahajan, and he asks, does the culture and organization percolate from culture of country, and India has ancient culture of kindness and caring? Does that help? Vinita ji, your quick insight on that.
See, technically, if you define culture, it's like, as we all know, it's all about the beliefs, the values, all that which you get from the environment, which in any case is generally the country or the milieu in which it is set. And which is why, again and again, I think twice or thrice in the conversation, I emphasized, and more so specifically in my domain, which is education, that there is so much that we knew, and that there are so much that we need to remember, that there were certain ways of doing things. As a nation, we were the most inclusive. As a nation, the whole philosophy of doing things was that of kindness. Like even today, if you go to the rural economy, you will see the entire growth is based on collaboration and cooperation. And the way our entire, and which is the testimony of the fact that why we could survive for so long, for thousands and thousands of years, because it was all rested in that culture of cooperation. It rested in the culture of, we go in it together. So if we just forget about the last 200 years, which has done a lot of damage to us, if we just go back to our own roots and we rekindle those feelings and those philosophies, start showing that, yes, that is the way going forward, we would actually get it right.
Okay. Quickly, my 1 cent on what Vinita ji shared on this question. See, in the discussion, we've come up with the understanding that definitely there is a business case for inculcating kindness or cultivating kindness as business culture also. And we as Indians, or as sitting in this country, we have a great heritage of this nation, whose whole philosophy is based on compassion, loving kindness, and sharing. So we are in a great position to actually use this business case and grow much faster and actually become a role model probably for the whole world to inculcate in this global business scenario. So that's, I thought I'll add. There's a very interesting question. I'm very tempted to take it. I know it's time, but I pose it to Vinod. I'm sure he can do justice to the time. The question is from Aman Verma, and he says, Vinod, will kindness not encourage indiscipline in the organization? Vinod.
So I think these are two separate things. When we are talking about kindness and empathy and being considerate, we are not saying that you accept bad performance or you accept wrong behavior or you accept indiscipline. So I think we should not mix this. These are two separate things. Okay.
Excellent. And I would again, Vinod, like to add one statement on that because of, let's say, an indiscipline issue, you have to fire an employee. That firing can also be done with a lot of kindness and compassion. Yeah. So perfect. There are tons of questions, and I'm glad. I mean, looking at the number of questions, GP, it says that, the kindness is going to grow in corporate India. Yeah, I'm very hopeful for that. But looking at the time, I think we'll have to leave these questions. We'll come back with the answers.
We will answer to their questions. And I want to make an exception. There is Sahil Nair. He's one of the most dynamic mid-level HR. And he connects the millennials and the senior people. So he raised his hand 3 times. Sahil, you want to ask a question? Sahil Nair? Okay, it's okay. We'll go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Sahil says yes. Sahil, you want to ask something, Sahil?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, GP. Really appreciate. I'm going to take 30 seconds and I'll leave this to you, Anish ji, to decide who from the panel would you like to answer this question. The question is, when we surround ourselves with kind people, it's the natural affinity, right? So you also want to be kind. But many times when kindness is not reciprocated in terms of expectation, the natural tendency to be kind, and here I'm talking about the common man, not of evolved souls, but the common man may find it very difficult to then be naturally kind. So any kind of thoughts or guidance on how do you make it intrinsic rather than dependent on reactions of people? That's my question. Back to you. Thank you, GP, for the opportunity.
Great. So allow me to quickly say a few words on that. Sahil, number one, we're not doing kindness for the sake of the world. Let's understand this. We are doing kindness for our own sake. Because as I said earlier, the more kind I am, the more balanced I am, the more in a non-suffering zone I am. So kindness is its own reward. Yeah, kindness is its own reward. My own cortisol levels are under control if I am kind, right? So it benefits me. When something benefits you, you're not really then looking at a reciprocal effect from the world. Do you follow what I'm trying to say? It is your own benefit. Yeah. Yes, when there's a reciprocation, when there's a positive reinforcement, it gives you sense of more joy. I totally agree with you. But inherently, if you remain kind, it helps your own nervous system, your own performance, your own well-being. So I think for things like these, we must not be dependent, and I'm using the word dependent, we must not be dependent on the reciprocal effect because we're doing it for ourselves. We're not doing it for anybody else. We're not doing anybody any favor by becoming more kind. There I rest my case.
By allowing Sahil to raise that question, we don't expect a thank you from him. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I propose, Sri Anish and the panelists is, we will stick to the time. We will close it formally. Keep the Zoom on. Let there be an informal discussion with, if permitting, your time permitting, we will take some more questions. People are raising hands. So what we'll do is, we will stick to the original time. We are supposed to sum it up now. So one way of summing it up is each one of you saying one-liner. Once we tried that in Orissa, that one-liner ran into 10 minutes. I will tell you later, but now that one-liner should be 5-10 seconds, each one of you, one-liners.
We start from Rajiv ji. Please, yeah. Rajiv ji.
Kindness is good for you and for the organization and the business that you do.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Vinod ji.
So what I would say is that the more generous and considerate the companies are, the greater will be the employee's sense of ownership and belongingness.
Beautiful. Vinita ji.
Again, something which I say to my youngsters, whatever they do is their business. You just treat them the way you should.
Beautiful.
So you have got choices. You can get us meditate. You can give opening, closing remark. Anything.
Yes. So I would like all of us to experience just 1 minute of meditation. Yeah, just 1 minute of meditation. So I ask all of you to keep your right hand in the center of your chest. In the center of your chest where the rib cage meets. Keep your left hand on top of the right hand. Yeah, like this. Yeah. Now you may please close your eyes. Take a deep breath, everybody. Feel absolutely relaxed. You might notice the neurons in your brain are active, very active at this moment. Take a few deep breaths to normalize them. One more deep breath. Now I will say 3 statements. With your closed eyes, you repeat these statements in your own consciousness silently. With your closed eyes. First statement. I feel safe and I feel cared for. Repeat in your consciousness. I feel safe and I feel cared for. One more time. I feel safe and I feel cared for. Take a deep breath. Now repeat. I feel deeply nurtured because the world is kind to me. Once again. I feel deeply nurtured because the world is kind to me. I feel deeply nurtured because the world is kind to me. Take a deep breath, friends. I promise to spread more kindness all around. Through my thoughts, through my words, through my actions. I promise to spread more kindness all around. Through my thoughts, my words, my action. One more time, friends. I promise to spread more kindness all around. Through my thoughts, through my words, through my actions. Take a deep breath again. And with a joyful expression, kindly open your eyes, friends. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, over to you, GP. Over to you. You're on mute, GP. You're on mute.
Thank you so much, the panelists and the moderator, Sri Anish, for a wonderful session. So it's over to the audience now. We were to sum up this conference, the on conference. So instead of we doing it, each one of you is a leader. You please sum it up in one liner, one word, one line in the chat box. We'll collate that knowledge. We'll collate that summary. We'll collate that response. We'll collate that thought and create a treasure of information, insight for the youngsters in building that new humanity. Over to the audience, please do that.